So, we gonna pick back up where we left off, you know what I mean? And we gonna get into how I reconnected back with Puff and Cassie. So, by this point, I was already doing my thing in Dallas, getting money, you know what I mean? Shit like that. But, shit started getting hot in Dallas, so, Farrago decided that everybody should lay low for at least 60 days, you know what I mean? Like 2 months, you know what I mean? So, little nigga, my little bro Platinum, he flew back to New Orleans. Flame laid low. Duke was already laying low. I went back to New York. So, chilling. Just, doing my thing in New York, laying low. Meeting up with old friends, shit like that, right? So at this point, I'm riding around in one of my cousin's cars, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? A black, motherfucking, BMW. All black BMW, you know what I mean? System, of course. So on this particular day, it was a summer day, you know what I mean? I just left the car wash. You know what I mean? So I just left the car wash, just pulled out the car wash. I'm riding down Jamaica Avenue, bumping that classic Pusha T shit. You know what I mean? That cocaine rap shit, you know what I mean? Shout out to Pusha T. So I'm bumping that Pusha T shit, just got the car wash, summertime, and, back in the day, ain't nothing like riding through Jamaica Avenue, you know what I'm saying? All the girls was out, you know what I mean? Just, it was a place to be, so I'm riding down Jamaica Avenue. Passing, you know what I mean? The Jamaica Center, the train station. Where the E-train is at. I'm passing by, I see my little cousin, Buddha, you know what I mean? So I turned the wheeler down like, yo, Buddha. I'm yelling out, Buddha. He turned around, I'm like, what up, nigga? So I pulled over. My little cousin, he about 18, 19. He comes to the car, he like, what up, cuz? I'm like, yo, what up? I'm like, what's up with you? Where you rolling to? And that's when my cousin Buddha was like, yo, I'm going uptown. He was like French Montana, shooting a video. You know what I mean? For that song, Ain't Worried About Nothing. So he's like, yeah, I'm going uptown. French Montana shooting a video. I'm going up there to get some footage. But my cousin Buddha, you know what I mean? He was shooting at the time for Hood Affairs DVD. You know what I mean? And this is around the time right before DVDs started going out. And Hood Affairs DVD moved their shit to YouTube. They got a YouTube channel now. Hood Affairs, shout out to Hood Affairs. And the founder and creator of Hood Affairs, Dre Mosman, he rest in peace. He from Queens, and he used to have my little cousin, run around with him and shoot videos for him. So, my little cousin keeping the legacy alive, so he was going up there to get some footage. So I'm like, fuck it, I will with you. I'm like, yo, get in. So my cousin gets in the car, and we head uptown, you know what I mean? We get there, the block is packed, you know what I'm saying? It's mad motherfuckers up there, you know what I'm saying? Mad bitches and shit. So, we chilling, you know what I mean? My cousin, he's checking out the scenery, getting a lot of footage on camera. I see, Diddy was there. So I'm like, yo, Puff, I call him Puff, yo, Puff. So when Puff turned around, he's like, oh, shit. And so he motioned for the security for me to come through. So I had my cousin come with me. So we go through, panel hall. He like, Puffy like, what up, baby? He was like, where you been, Playboy? I was like, I was laying low, you know what I mean? I was in Dallas, getting money, chilling or whatever, laying low. He's like, all right. So we talk, That's when my cousin actually, Puffy, yo, can I get an interview? And I was like, yeah, it's my cousin right here. He was like, yeah. So he asked me, he was like, how old are you, man? And my cousin was like 18. And that's when Puff said, he's like, only because you a young brother doing your thing, and you my man cousin, I'm going to give you a little interview. So that's when, my cousin asked like 3-4 questions, you know what I mean? Did a quick little interview. I stood to the side, and boom, once they was done, he asked, can he get an interview with French? And Diddy was like, yo, he was like, hustle, I like that. So that's when Puff motioned for French to come over. He introduced my cousin. My cousin got an interview with French. So So my cousin was hyped, now he got an interview with Puff and French, plus behind the scenes footage of the video, man. So me and Puff, we kicking it. He like, yo. He's like, how long you in town for? I said, I'm gonna be out here for a minute. To sit down. Puff was like, yo, I might have an opportunity for you, you know what I mean? I want to talk to you about some business. And so that's when, we exchanged numbers. He said, come see me, such and such a date at this time. I'ma holler at you. I'm like, alright, shook hands, pound hug. Me and my cousin roll a bottle in. So now, I think in like either the following day or a day and a half later, I roll down to Bad Boy Studios. Meet up with Puff, go in Puff's office. Puff like, yo, he said, I got an opportunity. He's like, I want you to, basically be Cassie's personal security. Nah, man, this way, this how I could look out for you, put some money in your pocket while you back out here in New York. So he was like, all you gotta do, make sure she good, go with her to the studio, interviews, basically just shop her around and just hold her down. He said, plus with my credentials and my connections, you'll be able to roll with that heat on you. Whatever, you know what I mean? He said, basically, I'm gonna hook you up just like I did D-Rock. You know what I mean? For those who don't know, which was, Biggie's best friend. And I could hook you up like, Wolf, R.I.P. Wolf. So I'm like, alright, cool. So Puffy hooks me up, gives me the credentials, puts me down with the security team. And so he's like, I think Cassie said, he's like, come, he was like, pull up. So I'm walking with Puff, you know what I mean, saying what up to, different people in the staff and shit, walking through. Cassie was in the studio. So when Cassie seen me, she's like, oh shit, she was shocked. So she run up, give me a hug, kiss. Cause remember, I knew Puff. And Cassie from, the time I met him and, did a couple freak-offs together and all that shit. You know what I'm saying, But, at this point, they just hired me as security at this point. So that's when Puff, said, yo, I'll hire Tony here for you. That's security, he gonna roll with you, you know what I mean? So that's when Cassie was like, alright, no doubt. So, so basically, from that day, I'm just chilling. So then Puff's like, yo, he pulled me to the side again. He said, yo, do you know where I can get like some ecstasy and like some cocaine and like some weed? He was like, he'd say he want to have a big party before he head back out to Miami, because Puff was going to take a trip to Miami and shit. So I'm like, alright, I could arrange that. He's like, no doubt. So that's when I roll out, to the hood, to the project, meet up with my niggas, and back up everything, you know what I mean? But the way I did it, I parked the car up, I just, I had it on. This chick I knew ordered an Uber for me, and so that way, I won't get tracked or nothing like that, so ordered the Uber, and I had the Uber drop me off like a block away from, like, where this, where the address was, the studio, whatever, the Bad Boy Studio. Got up with Puff and gave him, the bag and stuff. And I guess him and Cassidy and all of them had a big freak-off for Puff. Went out to Miami because Puff was going to handle some business in Miami and shit. Cool. So now me and Cassie, I'm rolling with her basically to the studio that day, because around this time she was working on her second album. So, I'm working with Cassie, and you know what I mean? She, working, just in the studio chilling. Everything normal, nothing out of the usual, you know what I mean? So cool. So, and then, I would, at the end of the day, I would have to check in with Puff either in person or via the phone, you know what I mean? FaceTime, whatever. And he just asking, how was this, how was that? Did she talk to anybody, anything, And I'm now not realizing. Now I realize, but then I didn't realize he basically only hired me as security to basically watch Cassie, to make sure she's not cheating and all that. But I didn't realize this at the time, Alright, so this went on for, until this one particular day. I remember Cassie and Puff got into a big argument, because Puffy was flying back and forth from New York to Miami, but this one particular day he was going to Miami. And, they got to a big argument before he went to Miami. So, I guess, somewhere down the line she's hearing rumors about Puff and, a chicken down in Miami he was fucking with. You know what I mean? One of the city girls, I can't think of her name right now. It was either her or another chick. But anyway, somehow Cassie got wind that Puff was messing with a chick. And she kept, one time, 'cause I was rolling with Cassie like 24/7, holding her down and shit. I remember she was on the phone with D-Rock, she had D-Rock on speaker and I'm just chilling. And she asking D-Rock, they're like, D-Rock, let me know where Sean is at. Sean, she calls him Sean. She's like, let me know where Sean's at, what he's doing, da-da-da-da. And all D-Rock kept saying over the phone is, Ms. Ventura, I am not, at liberty to give you any information on Mr. Combs. He just kept repeating that, like, basically telling Cassie, I can't give you no information on Mr. Combs. Mr. Combs, like basically, his business is his business. He has security. I can't give you no personal information on Mr. Combs. And she just, and then she hung up the phone and was pissed. You know what I mean? So, cool. So, that's when, she was, me and her just chilling, you know what I mean? At her spot, because she had a spot. Because, Puff wanted me to watch her 24 hours, making sure she ain't, because they will argue about cheating or whatever, or accuse each other of cheating. But, so she was like that, she heard that he's messing with, certain chicks, in Miami. So, me and her kicked it for a minute, and then I went on, to sleep, went to lay down in the guest room, so I'm sleeping or whatever. I hear my door open, it's Cassie's, she walks in, she basically just has on like a, like a robe or whatever, and she's like, rubbing and she wakes me up. So when I wake up, I'm like, what's up, Cassidy? I'm like, what's up, Cassidy? You good? I call her Cass. I'm like, what's up, Cass? You good? She was like, yeah. And then that's when she opens the robe and drops it. She butt-ass naked. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, yo, what about, I'm like, what's up? Like, she was like, nothing. And she was like, I woke up horny. She was like, this motherfucker's not here. You here, so, she was like, ain't like we ain't fucked before, so what's up? So I'm like, well, I thought the rules was, y'all couldn't play without. She was like, listen, this motherfucker's out in Miami with another bitch. You think I'm thinking about that right now? So, at first I was hesitant till she started grabbing my dick. Now, I just woke up, my dick hard, It's still late, though. It's still like, it's like 3 in the morning, 3:34 a.m. in the morning, so it's still dark, but, So, temptation, next thing you know, she pulled her sheets back, pulling off, my sweatpants and my t-shirt. We get it in, boom, she started giving me head. Cassie started giving me head. Boom, I make her sit on my face, now we 69 and boom. They staying on fucking that pussy, boom, 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 legs back, fucking that pussy, from the back, from the, like, we was fucking like, like fucking jungle monkeys and shit, just fucking, boom. We both come, we sleep. So when I wake up, and I look to the side where Cassie was, she wasn't, there. But when I looked down, she giving me head, and then, that's when she started giggling. I started like, I'm like, oh shit. So she giving me head. Next morning again, boom, boom, boom. Then now I lay her down on her back, and now I'm eating the pussy. Boom. So I'm eating the pussy. While I'm eating that pussy, I hear ding, like a loud ding. When I look up, Cassie's holding the cell phone, and I'm like, oh, so you gonna film me while I'm eating pussy? She like, yeah, smiling. So I'm eating the pussy, Cassie videotaping it. Boom, boom, boom. I'm eating the pussy. Then I get up, hold her legs up, and let her, videotape it while I slide the dick in the pussy. Boom. So now I'm sliding the dick in the pussy. She's still holding the phone, dick going in and out the pussy. Boom, boom. Then I grab the phone for her. Videotaping her face and the dick going in and out the pussy, flip it over. You know what I mean? You know, showing the dick getting going in and out the pussy, you know what I mean? Smacking that ass, pulling her fucking hair and holding, you know, her hair. You know, she making noise and shit, so I set the cell phone up. So now we fucking on it, you know, to where we both can see each other on the camera, fucking again. Boom, 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 fucking boom, 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 right? Boom, we both, you know, bust off. So now we shower up, you know what I mean? So now it's time for her to go to the studio, you know, because this was the routine. Puffy told me just make sure she stay, you know, in the studio, get to her interviews and do what she gotta do, right? So boom, so now we back, you know, messing with each other on the low, but you know, so we in the studio and shit. You know what I mean? So she's recording the shit. So she tells, you know, the engineer said he had to step away for a minute. So, you know, we kissing this shit, you know, feeling on each other, but we keeping it on the low. Every time the engineer, you know, come around, we break up. You know, then when he leave, we come back to, you know, to when at the particular time. He said, yo, I gotta run downstairs. He said he had to do something to the engineer. So, Cassie tells me to come in the booth. So, now it's just me and her in the studio. So, you know, she pushes me back like in the dark area of the studio where you can't see. So, you know, she started unzipping my pants. So she started giving me head and shit. Now I'm filming her, and then she was like, oh, let me find out. I'm like, yeah. So now she's sucking my dick, and I'm filming it. Boom, she giving me head. Boom, 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 boom. You know, then she takes, you know, the dick out of her mouth, and, you know, she jukes it all on her face. I light a lid off on her face. Boom. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm now taking snapshots with my cum and my dick, you know, just around her face and shit. She's laughing. Boom, clean that shit up. You know, I know, no lie, as soon as I sat on the couch, and Cassie sat back on the stool like where she was with the mic, the engineer walked back and said, sorry, you know, I took her along. And then that's when Cassie gave me the shot face, and I'm like, and I'm like, whoa. So that's when I texted, that's when she texted me from the booth. And then when I looked at the text, it said, perfect timing, with the LOL, you know, the laughing emojis, that's when I chuckled. So that's when the engineer was like, all right, Cassie, we're going to pick it up. And then that's when they, you know, started working on the song. Boom, boom, boom. So now, you know, everything's normal like I said. But, you know, Puff started calling Cassie and accusing her of messing with the actor Michael B. Jordan. And they would argue back and forth about Michael B. Jordan. You know, which, you know, she was talking to him on the low, but I didn't know it at the time. And he was asking her, yo, you fucking this nigga that like he yelling on the phone and shit. And she was like, no, I'm not fucking him with or whatever. They, you know, back and forth. They'll argue about different, you know. Like, if it wasn't, you know, Puff accusing her of fucking Michael B. Jordan, it was Kid Cudi or a certain NFL player, you know what I mean? I mean, one time, Cassie wanted to go out to this nightclub called WIP, which I think it stands for Work in Progress, some shit. Cause she said that, you know, it was a big party going down, where everybody was gonna be there, you know what I mean? You know, Drake, Chris Brown, Meek Mill, you know, a few others. So me, Cassie, and, you know, two others, you know, security. You know, we escort Cassie down to this club, so we chillin'. So of course, you know, when we get there, Cassie's taking pictures with different people. She took a picture with Meek. She took one with Drake, and she took one with Chris Brown. You know what I'm saying? And this is the same incident, you know what I mean? This is the same night the shit went down where, you know, we was chillin'. You know, me, Cassie, we chillin', you know, enjoying the music, you know what I mean? Chris Brown and Meek's on the other side, Drake's on the other side. Some shit went down where they started, you know, like, having a confrontation with each other. And they start throwing bottles at each other and shit, you know what I mean? As they throwing bottles, you know, of course I grab Cassie, and, you know, we get Cassie a bottle there. And then, you know, we get up out of there, and that's when, later on, we seen online that Chris Brown had that cut on his chin. And Chris Brown, you know, was online, you know, posting about how he's the R&B nigga, but yet niggas, you know what I mean? And I remember Cassie, you know, called to check on Chris Brown and make sure everything was good. And that's how that collaboration happened between Chris Brown and Cassie. And you know what I mean? I remember Puff was very, you know, adamant, asking her, you know, was they fucking around, and, you know, and her denying it, and she would always vent to me, about, Puffy, always accusing her, and, I didn't know about the, abuse and shit, yet, that came later on. So, so of course me and Cassie, we still doing our thing on the low, but whenever Puff was in New York, we wasn't really, fucking like that, cause she would be with him. So I mean, one time I get a, text message from her, she was like, yeah, her and Puff, they about to, do a little freak off. She don't really feel like doing it because, she always used to say that, Puff had a low, she's always say Puff had a little dick or whatever, and that he couldn't satisfy her, you know what I mean? So she asked me one time to send the video that I had in my phone of me, with her sucking my dick and shit. She was like, she said, send me the video with me sucking that big dick. That's what she said. So I sent her the video because she wanted to masturbate to it. To get her shit off, after her and Puff was together or whatever. She wanted to get, her shit off, So I sent her the video and shit. Plus she already had the other videos we made, fucking, She already had those videos. Plus I sent her some other videos we made on my phone, Cause I was like tapping that ass like every night, when Puff wasn't there. So now this leads up to this big incident. So I'm chilling. Mind you, Puff's back in New York. So once Puff's back in New York, Cassie and Puff usually, they chill together, They, So I would be off, whenever Puff wasn't there. That's when he had me follow Cassie around with him, whatever. When this one particular day, I'm chilling in the, in the hood, in my projects or whatever, getting the workout in the pub with my niggas. My phone ring. I look. It's a number I'd never seen before, but it's a Manhattan number. I'm like, hello. And Cassie's like, yo. She's all out of breath. She was like, yo, I got into an argument with Puff. He was asking me about, Michael Mijo and Chris Pratt, all these niggas. And she was like, the nigga, it told me if I'm not cheating, go through my phone. So she said she was gonna let him see the text messages because she, I guess would delete certain things or whatever. She was gonna show me she wasn't cheating. But she said soon as she, and this is documented on the papers, you can look this up. She said soon as she put the code in on the phone to show him, he snatches the phone and disappears. And she was panicking. So she was like, yo, the videos are in there, with me and her. So I'm like, oh, shit. So I'm like, fuck. So I'm like, so where this nigga at? She said she don't know. She said all she knows is this nigga, ran off with the phone, and it's been like, fucking 2 hours and shit. So I'm like, fuck. So, so she was like, I'm gonna hit you back. She never hit me back, though. So I'm chilling. So now I go up to the bad boy office to report. So that's when I would go in there. The ID that I would use, it wasn't working. So I'm like, oh shit. So I'm kind of like, so that's when D-Rock came down and he escorted me up to the office. So when I get in there, Paul's sitting at the desk. D-Rock, walks it, but I first hesitate because I'm like, well, he's gonna try to jump me. That's what I'm thinking to my, what I'm saying? But I said, fuck it, so I walk in. Puff's sitting at the desk, He's on the phone, And then D-Rock closes the door, it's another, big nigga there, but I ain't think nothing of it. So that's when, Puff had the guy on speaker. And he told the dude, he was like, yo, he said, I'm gonna call you back, and I gotta take care of something. So he hungs up on the guy. So, he asked me to have a seat. So I'm like, damn, I don't want to sit to where I can't see. So I, kind of turned the chair and sat down so I could see D-Rock in my peripheral and this other dude. So that's when, Puff asked the dude to step out for a minute. And he asked D-Rock to step out. So he was like, yo, so, he said that, he went through Cassie's phone and he seen it. And he was like, nah. He was like, so, he said it. He was like, yo, man, I showed you love, I put money in your pocket, I asked you, was she cheating, was she doing this, doing that? You know, and the whole time you fucking my bitch, he was like, that's some fucked up shit to, smile at a nigga face, shake a nigga hand. And I said, well, me and Cassidy messed around before. You was dead. He was like, yeah. He was like, I was dead. But, you having fun with my bitch behind my back. He was like, Playboy, that's not how this goes, you know what I'm saying? He was like, I'm disappointed in you, Tony. So, I'm trying to apologize and say it won't happen again. He was like, you're right, it won't happen again. He was like, as of today, he was like, you're fired from Bad Boy Records. So I'm like, damn. So I was like, I understand that. So he was like, it's not personal, but he said, I don't have a problem with sharing my bitch. But, you don't do a nigga like that, man. He was like, I don't know what you gonna do from here on, but I wish you nothing but the best, my nigga. So I'm like, alright. So I get up, when I walk out, D-Rock and other dudes standing there, I left. I ain't even, seen Cassie or nothing. And that was the last time I seen Cassie and Puff. You know what I mean? Because, all because, thinking with my dick, I guess, you could say, you know what I mean? But hey, the pussy was good though, you know what I mean?